Hi, thank you for joining the Center for Justice and the Law Spotlight Conversation series, where we talk about the topics on health, justice, and law with guests. I'm Patricia.
And I'm Mai.
And we're students in the Health, Justice, and Advocacy class this semester. We are partnering with CJL. Today, our spotlight conversation will focus on the topics of sexual violence art, healing, and activism. Our conversation today will be with John Stumme. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. So we asked you to join us because of your work with Body of Resistance and how it has connects with our theme today, which is sexual violence, art, and healing. You inspired us because of your work and the story that has been told throughout the painting. And can you tell us a little bit about your work and what you're doing to the community?
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me. Bodies of Resistance is a collaborative art show between photographer Suzanne Schaff, writer Judith Jopp, and myself. And I'm the painter. And it was a process that began nearly 5 years ago in response to things that the former president, whose name I won't mention, um, was saying about women and about their bodies and what he did to them. And as artists, we found that we needed to react politically um, to those kinds of statements, just because it was such a it just jarred us. And so we wanted to do something through our art to respond. And so we came up with this idea for Bodies of Resistance. And essentially, we have paired, it's a show that pairs pictures, photographs of women with images that I have painted in their kind of self chosen poses of resistance, and also includes written narratives about each woman's story of resistance. Um, we as artists chose to have the images nude because it's women's bodies that were literally and figuratively under attack. And so showing the body was a way to respond and react to that. And the poses were poses that the women chose that felt like powerful or resistant poses to them. And some of the textures and the props and the colors in the paintings were all um, kind of help to illustrate the story, each person's story. So this show happened in September. It took us about 4 or 5 years to get it off the ground. And then COVID hit, and so that delayed it even more. So we've had a show already at Jackson Flats, and we're in the process of shopping around the show to bring it out state Minnesota so that these stories can be shared in other places in the state. Um, so that's kind of what the show is all about. And if
Yeah,
I can answer other questions, I'm happy to do that.
yeah. I that's really powerful by having like art as like a way for us to express our feelings of like how or what we've been through, and
Mm-hmm.
based on like how through your art it's kind of like showing how the women have been through and what they think is powerful for them, and that's really powerful in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. um with that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what is your personal connection to our topic today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I just want to say, first of all, that, when we first had the idea for this story, we thought the poses would be about, resistance, political and social resistance to the oppression and to attacks on women's bodies. But the stories of resistance were extremely varied from woman to woman, and it was a very diverse group of women we reflected in these stories. But their stories were ranging from resisting ideas that women can't be passionate or sexual beyond a certain age, or resisting ideas, the idea that two sisters we painted and photographed, for example, were slowly watching their father die from Parkinson's, and his body kind of deteriorating. And so they, as sisters, are resisting that whole physical deterioration of body by doing yoga together, by exercising together, and keeping their own bodies, in strong shape. And so the poses, some of them are more, like strong and like figuratively and literally resistant looking, while others are serene and peaceful, because that can also be a way to resist oppression. Is by, well, I think people can certainly go to the website and read the stories of the individual women. As far as my old personal connection, people have said, "Well, why are you as a male? Why are you doing this?" And first, I'm an artist, and I love to paint, and I love the human figure and the human form. But also, I have a very strong sense of the feminine within myself, and I honor that. And as a gay man, um, I realized that I grew up with my own body being under attack, either verbally or literally, just simply because of who I was or who I was perceived to be, even before I had any self awareness as a gay man. And so I have this need to, protect my own body. And when I was a child, it was more the flight. I would run from attacks, either verbal or physical. And now, as an adult, fully aware and proud of who I am, I would rather I can fight back against that kind of oppression and that kind of assault. And so I think I have that connection to the women in this story and the personal aspects of protecting their bodies and protecting my own body.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
everything you've been through, and I'm glad you're here with us today. So the next question would be, what are some obstacles you faced while working on Bodies of Resistance, and how did you get the women to collectively agree to work with the team?
I think just, well, COVID was an obstacle because it delayed our show by a whole year. And I think um, I had to overcome the obstacle of being challenged about my role as a male in painting the women, and I've just explained how I did that and what my connection is. Um, and I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
How did you get the women to
Uh,
work with you?
I have an artist friend who is a teacher. She was teaching at MCAT at the time, and she taught some life drawing classes. And she put out an email just saying, "John's looking for models to be in the show." And literally within hours, I'd been contacted by multiple women who wanted to be part of it and to tell their story. And some of the women were also people who I knew personally, friends or friends of friends. So it wasn't hard. And I think the experience of interviewing the women, of photographing them, of painting them, was really intimate and really powerful for me and for my partners. And the experience for the women of being interviewed and photographed and painted and having their stories represented in a very respectful way was powerful for them too. So it was a pretty profoundly moving experience for everybody who was involved.
Yeah, I think it's um, really powerful for other people to help you tell their story. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you guys are able to do that for them. Going along with that, how long was the process for each painting, and for each painting you made for the entire show?
Yeah. Well, like I said, the show, we kind of came up with the idea in 2016, and the show just happened this past September of 2021. So, 5 years, I guess. the paintings, they varied. You know, I painted when I had time to paint. I'm raising two children with my husband, and I have another job as a community organizer. Um, and so I painted when I had time to paint and when I had the energy to paint. And so um, the paintings all took, different amounts of time. But, you know, it was a good, solid 4 years of painting. And part of the process in the paintings is not just painting, but creating the backgrounds for each painting. And those were all done separate. The backgrounds were done separately. And as I said, they reflect the colors of the women and their colors of power. And I would like paint the backgrounds, tear them, and then compose them onto a board in a way that would support their image. And then I painted their image on top. So it was kind of a multi-step process to create the images. But it took a long time to do each one for sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you were able to work with like a diverse amount of women and coming from like different cultures and backgrounds. Yes, that was very meaningful for you too.
Yeah, and not just diverse in terms of their ethnic backgrounds or their race, but also just very diverse in terms of body size and body shape. I mean, it was really we were very intentional from the beginning that we would have that diversity and age too. I think our models range from 24 to 70. So because that's who we are as a society, and that's who women are. They're not a monolithic group.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Going along with that, are you guys planning to also create an like a body resistant 2.0 with like a diverse of like women and like men? Yeah.
That's a really good story. I mean, not a good story, a good question. Sorry. And one of the things that I've been kicking around is telling the story, my story, and the story of older men like me who grew up at a time when it wasn't. I mean, it's still not a safe place for queer kids to be always in this society, but it was especially not safe when I was growing up. And so those experiences of fear and of self-protection, I would like to, um, as a gay man, I would like to maybe tell that story through art, and even have the man also. I think it needs to be nude because of the literal, physical the attacks on their physical bodies. But in some of those kind of maybe positions of fear or crouching or whatever they remember from their younger days when they were trying to protect themselves, and somehow juxtapose those poses with images of them now, where maybe they're doing a lot better and where they're more confident. So it's something I've been kicking around in my own head, and you guys are really the first people I've talked to about that idea, but I think it's worth exploring.
Thank you so much for telling us about what
Yeah.
you are looking forward to do.
Mhm.
So with that being said, were there any like main takeaways after completing Bodies of Resistance?
Yeah, I think it was we were exhausted after it, so that was a takeaway, that we were tired and we needed a break. But the other takeaway is that um, the who came to see this show, in particular women, many of them were very moved to tears by seeing the pictures, seeing the paintings, and reading the stories of the women, and felt a connection, personal connection to those women and to those stories. And it was also an empowering kind of connection for the most part. But I think that was a takeaway, that it was a really intimate personal experience for the women to participate, for the artists to portray their stories, and for people to come and view and hear and read their stories. And so that's kind of why we feel like we need to move the show around um, a bit and have it show up in venues where, you know, I don't just show up in other venues in outstate Minnesota where maybe they haven't been exposed to these kinds of stories. So that's the main thing, to try and reach more people through sharing through sharing bodies of resistance.
Yeah. With that, what can we expect from you in the future? And would you like to work on another project? Um, I know that we can like touch base on it earlier, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. For me, I want to, I'm working on kind of identifying who I am as an artist, and continuing to grow as an artist. I was 50 years old when I started making art for the first time. My husband bought me a class, an Artist Way class, that was designed to help blocked creative people get going. And so I've only been making art for a while. And I want to continue to try and understand my artist soul and the different ways that I want to express that. And so I am doing some personal exploration with, what that might be. And certainly, and also doing some kind of commission work for some folks, so I can have some income. And then finally, just, maybe eventually working towards the idea that I shared with you for another kind of Bodies of Resistance show. And it's interesting because my 11-year-old son, when he overheard me talking to somebody about this show about the men, and he said it could be called Bodies of Resilience. And I thought, wow, yeah, it could. And so could this one have been, because it kind of is about resilience. So those are my thoughts about the future.
Okay, and so are there any organizations or resources you would like to share with the audience, or that we can boost for you?
Um, Gosh, I don't know. There are some really great nonprofit art organizations around, and it's, uh, I think, an opportunity for folks just to kind of see what other artists are doing. And there's so much um, kind of political and social activism that happens through art. So, top of my head, I don't have specific resources to name, but I think, folks can um, do some searches and find some of those things out, and um, and learn in those ways, learn through art.
Yeah, we can definitely include your webpage so other
I appreciate that.
people in your audience can um, view all the work.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
And then going along with that, if you could leave these conversations with one message about this topic, what would it be and why?
I think art is an important way to communicate, and not every artist has to be, do activism through their art. And I wasn't planning on it myself really until, we were spurred on by the comments that our former leader was making about women. So art is a way to respond to things that are going on around us, and it's also just a way to create things that people connect to, that they find beautiful, that they find moving, that they find troubling, all of those things. And artists have to make art. It's just kind of, it's I think, who we were created to be, and what we were created to do. And so, I don't know. I want to encourage creative people to figure out what their source of energy is for creating, and to explore and learn about different ways to express that energy, because it's got to come out. It should come out, and people need to just be brave, and to take steps to help realize those kinds of creative passions.
That's very true. And I think, you know, sharing your story and being able to read about all the women that were participated in Bodies of Resistance, it was very meaningful. And I also agree that being able to express your creativity through art and being able to share your message is such a powerful way to be able to reach, you know, out to people who definitely probably seek healing of
Yeah,
sexual violence.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. We,
With no, go
I was
ahead.
just, we were so grateful to the women who participated, for being brave and for sharing their stories. Um, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, as like a woman myself, I really appreciate your work and your art that you are able to help others like express their feelings, express what they've been through. So that's really powerful. Um, with that, we have we're out of time, and we thank you for your time to this interview. And just be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and tune in for the next spotlight for next week. All
All
right.
right, you guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.